Hello, welcome to Keep Your Thrive Alive. I'm Mark Mulligan, and this is a space where I share inspiration, tips, and ideas to boost your mood, your energy, and your well-being. There's more focus on resilience and well-being today than ever before. And why is it so important? Well, it's because people are experiencing so much stress, both in their work and their home lives. Today, I'd like to share with you some strategies that you can use if you're feeling stressed in the moment so that you can feel better straight away. Before I go into what it is that you can do about stress, I'd like to first talk about stress, its function, and how it's actually designed to protect us. When our ancestors were hunter-gatherers, it was the stress response that kept them alive. Take a journey with me now back in time. Imagine a hunter on the Serengeti Plains and he sees a lion. Immediately he perceives it as a threat and the stress response kicks in. In his body, certain physical changes start. His heart begins to beat more quickly, his breathing becomes more rapid. In order to get more oxygen into his lungs, his vision changes from being peripheral to being steely focused on the immediate threat, and his body tenses. So he's primed to take the correct physical action to protect himself. His thoughts change also. He forgets about everything else and becomes completely fixated on the threat of the lion. He scans his environment, thinking about all the possible courses of action to avoid the worst case scenario. There's also a big change in his emotions. He feels different. Maybe he's feeling aggressive or anxious or angry or panicked. He's gone into fight or flight mode. Now, this is a resourceful state if you're fighting for your life. It would have helped him respond quickly and correctly to the physical threat of the lion. And so the stress response kept our hunter ancestor alive and is the reason why we're here today. Now, the way we live our lives today is very different. Fortunately, few people are in daily fear of their lives. However, we respond to any threat in the same way. This could be a threat to our ego, our reputation. It could be a threat to our likability or being excluded from the gang. So if we get a piece of developmental feedback, or if we're not invited to a meeting or a group event, or even if we don't get any likes on a social media post, we respond in a similar way as if it was a threat to our lives. And the really interesting thing is that the threat doesn't even have to be real. We only need to imagine the threat. The stress response is exactly the same. So why is that such a problem today? Our 24/7, constantly connected digital world bombards us with stimulus, much of which creates the stress response in us. The result is that we're in fight or flight mode too much of the time. Now, there's nothing wrong with being in it for a short period. However, it's been in stress state for a prolonged period that so often causes problems with our physical and mental well-being. For those of you who are interested in the science, our autonomic nervous system, which controls involuntary actions like our heartbeat and digestion, is split into two parts. One part, the sympathetic nervous system, controls our fight or flight response. The other part, the parasympathetic system, controls rest and digest response. The key to good mental health and physical well-being is getting the balance right between the two. The really interesting thing is that the two parts of the nervous system can't be turned on at the same time, which means that if you work to activate one, then the other is suppressed. You're going to learn how to consciously influence your autonomic nervous system to turn off the sympathetic nervous system and turn on the parasympathetic nervous system. Or to put it more simply, we're going to consciously change the signs of the stress when we're in fight or flight and fool ourselves into the rest and digest by making small changes physically, mentally, and emotionally. Let's start with the physical. I'd like to share with you two physical strategies to help you in the moment. The first is the breath. If stress causes you to breathe in rapid, shallow breaths, then we're going to consciously do the opposite. We're going to lengthen and deepen the breath so that it calms down the nervous system, slows your heart, and makes you feel more relaxed. Breathing more deeply also allows for more carbon dioxide to enter your blood, which quietens down the parts of the brain, like the amygdala, that handle the anxiety response. Can I invite you to inhale for a count of 4 through the nose, and exhale for 4 through the mouth. Inhale for 4 through the nose. Exhale for 4 through the mouth. Doing this for as little as a minute can make a big difference. The second physical area is our vision. If the stress response changes our vision so that it becomes more focused, we need to consciously change it so that it's the opposite, it becomes more peripheral. This worked particularly well with a coaching client of mine. When she presented to large groups, she would get really stressed and worked herself up into a state. What she learned to do was to look out into the audience, just above their heads, and take in the whole room so that she could see the audience in their seats, the ceiling above, the exits to the right, and the exits to the left. And even as I'm doing that now, I can feel myself getting more calm and relaxed. Let's move on to thinking. The average person has between 12,000 and 60,000 thoughts in a given day, the majority of which are negative, up to 80%. When we're stressed, this percentage of negative thoughts gets even higher. So here's an exercise you can easily do. Think of a situation you find stressful. Take a pen and paper and write down all the things that you're telling yourself. It can be quite a long list. I did this exercise with a coaching client I mentioned before, the one who got nervous in front of big crowds. So what was she telling herself? I'm nervous. I'm going to mess up. They're not going to like me. I'm going to make a fool of myself. I'm useless at my job. Nobody will find it useful. This will be a complete waste of time for everybody. It's going to be a complete disgrace. Then once you've written down all the thoughts that feed your stress, take a moment to check if they're true, false, or you just don't know. For starters, anything that's in the future is a definite don't know. None of us has a crystal ball to be able to see into the future to know what it is will happen. A recent study, published just in May 2020 at Penn University, researched into worrying. They found that 91% of worries never came true, complete false alarms. That normally takes out most of the list. Next, strike out anything that you're telling yourself which is an absolute. Like the I'm useless at my job thought of my coaching client. Is this true? Is it possible that she's completely useless? That she has no utility at all? Of course not. So then look at the list and reflect back on what is really true. In this example, the only truth that she was telling herself is that she was nervous. A voice inside our head is so much more powerful than anything anybody else will ever say to you. Seeing the thoughts written down on paper and consciously recognizing them as either being false or a figment of our imagination disempowers them. If you repeat this exercise over time, it helps reduce the volume of our negative mind chatter. So the third and final strategy is emotional. If you're feeling stressed and that's not how you'd like to feel, then think how would you like to feel? In our Thriving workshops, we spend a lot of time coaching people to discover their thriving state and what being at their best selves means for them. If you've been on a workshop, then think about your thriving state now. If you've not been on a workshop yet, then just imagine a state that you'd like to be in. How would you like to feel more of the time? Perhaps calm or centered or relaxed or positive as being possible examples. All you need to do is to pick one emotion, and the exercise is so simple. Think back to a moment in time when you felt like this. This technique works really well if you can think of a specific moment in time. Remember where you were, who you were with, or if you were alone, and at that time what you could see, what you could hear. Imagine that you're teleporting back in time to that place, back into your body, and notice how it feels. As we think back to a moment in time in the past and remember the specifics of that situation and imagine that we're there in that situation, we begin to feel it here and now as we did back then. As human beings, we have mirror neurons, which allow us to mirror what it is that we're seeing or remembering as if it's happening to us in the here and now. So, in summary, if you're feeling stressed in the moment, you can use your awareness of how this is happening to you physically, mentally, and emotionally to consciously manipulate each of these so that you can shift from feeling stressed to feeling more positive. So I hope it was useful to discover 3 simple strategies of what you can do to help you to feel less stressed in the moment. Now I'd love to hear from you. Please leave your comments in the section below. What did you find most useful about this video and what are you going to do? There's so much more that I would love to share with you. Today we talked about your thriving state and I'd love to see you in that state more of the time. If you'd like to learn what thriving is and what being your best self is for you and how you get there more of the time, you can sign up now at www.thriving.courses to the Thriving Individuals course and discover simple strategies to be healthier, happier and more fulfilled across all of the areas of your life. I look forward to seeing you next month and in the meantime, be well and thrive.